What's up, guys? We have a special episode for you today. We're going to be breaking down how to invest in short-term rentals and how to use them as a way to reduce your taxes. Short-term rentals are one of the few ways someone who is perhaps a W-2 employee with a regular job can take advantage of some of the tax benefits that real estate provides. So this episode is going to be broken down into two parts. Part one, I'm going to have my friend Eric Ravenscroft join us. Eric is a real estate investor, real estate agent, and advisor in this space. And he's going to be breaking down how to identify properties that are good short-term rental candidates and how to ensure that they're actually good investments that cash flow for you. The second part, I'm going to dive in and break down some of the tax strategies associated with short-term rentals. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I can't wait for you guys to tune in. What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in. My name is John Boyd. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm the founder and lead wealth advisor here at Modern Wealth. That's modern spelled with no vowels, wealth. And I'm here today with my man, Eric Ravenscroft. Obviously, I'm kind of biased, but I believe that he's one of the best real estate agents and advisors out there that truly has a great grasp on this space. He's had a ton of experience, not only being a real estate investor himself, but he knows a thing or two about short-term rentals. So I'm super stoked for him to be here today. It's going to be a ton of fun. So Eric, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, thank you for those kind words, John. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar today. As John mentioned, my name is Eric Ravenscroft, and I'm excited to be here. So I actually bring over 14 years experience, not only in the real estate space, but also in financial planning sectors, having worked as an advisor, a manager, and director of wealth management. Currently, I run my own real estate business, the Ravenscroft Group, which is based out of Arizona. And I also have a national team that covers all 50 states, including Canada. My goal really is to help bridge the gap between real estate and financial planning for all clients, everyone in need. With my experience, I bring a little bit of a different light and perspective to the industry, truly looking at real estate as an asset class, as an investment, and most importantly, as an income generating asset. So I'm going to pass it back to John so we can dive into a little bit of an intro and overview of short-term rentals and talk about the planning benefits.
Awesome, man. Well, as Eric just mentioned, we're going to be talking all about short-term rentals. Now, if you're wondering what is classified as a short-term rental, we're talking about a property where the average stay is 7 days or less. So think Airbnb, VRBO. Generally speaking, the properties on these platforms are oftentimes going to have a duration of 7 days or less. And the reason why we want to talk about them is, number one, short-term rentals have the potential to really cash flow strong and generate really good returns. And then the second thing that we want to talk about is that short-term rentals have the potential to potentially wipe out your entire tax bill. So before we talk about the tax benefits, which oftentimes is a big appeal with short-term rentals, are those tax benefits, I think it's really important that you understand how it all works, how investing in a short-term rental works. Because at the end of the day, you should never buy an investment strictly for the tax benefits. It can be very capital intensive. Obviously, it requires leverage if you're financing it. So it's really important that you understand how this investment works and how to sleeve it in to your own portfolio, which is why we want to have Eric here today break all of this down. So Eric, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you to walk us through the economics of how short-term rentals work and some things that we need to think about.
Perfect. Well, thanks, John. Yeah, we're going to go through a lot of important things that you need to know with regards to short-term rentals. And oftentimes, this is something, I mean, John and I have talked about this on multiple occasions. There's not a lot of education out there. There's education on, you see things on social media, you see things really everywhere about short-term rentals, but knowing how to operate a short-term rental to maximize revenue and to ultimately, like I always say, create an experience where you're going to want to get the absolute most traffic to your property, and some really important things that you need to know. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. A little bit about me, like I mentioned, experience in wealth management and real estate. I am a certified residential specialist. So that's essentially a designation that only 2% of agents across the country have. I am a preferred partner in vacation and short-term rentals. So I do work with a lot of property managers, those who specialize in vacation rentals as well, real estate strategist, and then, like I mentioned, a team all across the country and in Canada. So important things to know. We're going to really focus some time on this because I often find those who purchase short-term rentals and they're not successful, they don't follow these 4 guidelines. Number 1. So when we maximize profits and we look at the ultimate risk, short-term rentals, as John mentioned, so less than 7 days, they offer high profit potential, but like anything, they come with significant risk and expenses. So with a short-term rental, you are furnishing that home. Sometimes people don't understand how much cost there is with furnishing a vacation rental. Not only is it furniture to TV, you're also talking about everything in the kitchen, from utensils and towels and toiletries, everything that anyone would need in a home. We usually see that the cost is anywhere from about $25,000 to $35,000, again, depending on the size of the home, but that's usually the starting point to furnish a property as a short-term rental. So obviously a short-term rental can provide much more returns than a long-term rental. Of course, the tax benefits outweigh long-term rentals as well. But like I said, furnishing amenities, utilities is the other thing that you have to pay as a short-term rental. So when you have people in the property, especially in places such as Arizona, where it's hot in the summer, you're going to see and have to factor in that to your breakdown and budget, that utility bill is going to be much higher. You also have seasonal fluctuations and frequent turnovers. So we sometimes call short-term rentals the revolving door strategy, because you may have someone in for 2-3 days, and then it's a quick turnaround to get the property cleaned, make sure everything is in proper working order for new guests to then arrive. So there is a lot of work that can go into that, a lot of expenses as well. Seasonal fluctuations is another thing to keep in mind. Depending on your market, every single market will have some type of seasonal fluctuation. So for example, in some areas, like let's call out Washington, so in Oregon, Chicago, you're going to see a big decline in the winter months simply because of the weather. Whereas places like in Arizona and Florida, we're kind of natural beneficiaries of snowbirds that are coming here from October to April to escape the colder climate. So something to keep in mind with the location of where you're looking at, and just to know with profits and risk, yes, you're going to be able to yield greater returns, but there are risks associated with that. Number 2, local ordinances. And this is one of them that unfortunately oftentimes is missed too many times. Not all areas allow short-term rentals. And depending on your area and your city and state, there's very different rules. I'll call out some few examples. So in regions like in Arizona, specifically in the Phoenix metro, Phoenix is comprised of a lot of HOAs. So HOA regulations can state whether they allow or restrict short-term rentals. Other areas, like places in Oregon, let's just say, they will have different ordinances where you have to be grandfathered in to having a short-term rental. If you live within a certain proximity of a property that's designated a short-term rental, you can't have a short-term rental. Other areas in the Midwest and the East Coast, and especially in Florida, some cities and regions and counties have all out banned short-term rentals. Some have been grandfathered in, or some cities have specific rules that you have to follow, such as you need to show a license, you need to pay a specific tax, register with the city. So that is something to really keep in mind is, again, not all areas allow short-term rentals. And you have to be very diligent, because the last thing you want to do is put all this investment, all this capital, all this time into turning a property into a short-term rental. And then 2 months, even a year down the road, let's just say you get a notice that you have to shut down the property as a short-term rental. So ultimately, one of the most important things is know where you're looking and know the ordinances within the area that you're researching. Maximizing returns, kind of talking about, again, the location. Different regions can yield much different returns. A lot of it's going to be based on your effective marketing, what amenities are offered, pricing strategies. Each individual city has its advantages. You could have a very expensive market. Let's say California. You can have very expensive real estate. However, the daily rate that you can charge, maybe for access to, somewhere in the city, the beach, near a theme park, a sporting event, the mountains, you can charge a much higher daily rate. So that higher price point may be offset by the revenue that you would generate. And the same for value areas. Just because it's lower in price doesn't mean you're not going to generate revenue. So just know different regions are going to yield much different returns. And a lot of it is going to be focused on your budget and overall strategy. And now one of the most important rules, the impact of sleeping capacity and amenities. I'll talk more about creating an experience in a little bit with regards to amenities, but one of the things that ultimately sometimes cannot be changed in a home is its floor plan, is its footprint, and the size. How many people can actually sleep in that home? What we oftentimes see in a lot of different markets that got very saturated over the last 5 years, so many people were eyeing 3-bedroom homes because they were cheap. But what happened? So many 3-bedroom homes came to the market. Now we have saturation for 3-bedroom homes in that sleeping capacity of, say, 6 to 8 people. Now that revenue has declined substantially. You're seeing people that are just unloading those homes, selling them because they're not making the revenue that they once were. So sleeping capacity is ultimately what drives revenue. Other amenities such as a pool, a hot tub, a home office can further enhance the appeal. But one of the most important things, sleeping capacity, is very, very important. And with sleeping capacity, you want to keep in mind, let's say it's a 5-bedroom home and it has a loft and maybe it has another spare area. You don't want to just jam pack beds everywhere you can, because that's going to lead to negative reviews, which is ultimately going to hurt your ability to get future bookings and higher revenue. So higher bedroom count, home offices, things that can maybe be converted to sleeping spaces and creating an experience is essentially what you want to look for. So starting points. Now, we talked about the regulations, the local kind of rules. With that goes hand in hand of when you're seeking representation, hiring a real estate professional that is not only knowledgeable about the rental rules, about the restrictions and regulations, but also just about short-term rentals in general. Agents and real estate professionals who know about short-term rentals, they know what to look for in a home. When you're looking at a home to maybe be converted into a short-term or vacation rental, or a home that is already an existing short-term rental, agents, real estate professionals who are experienced with short-term rentals, they know what to look for as far as you can convert this space. You can maybe utilize this space in a different light. This is what you can do in a backyard for what people and guests are looking for. So very important. I'd say most importantly is the local ordinances. Real estate professionals that specialize in short-term rentals, they will know the communities that allow or disallow short-term rentals. For example, with me here in Arizona, I've been tracking this for close to 9 years now, all the communities that allow it, that don't allow it, that have certain gaps and windows as far as your time frame on how long you can rent out your property. Let's go on to success. So your specific strategy will depend on the location. Like I said, with the example of California, if you're in a mountain town, you're in a beach area, you're in the city. So you're going to really want to focus on what your ultimate strategy is with the location in mind, factoring in your price point, and really to leverage the short-term rental loophole, which John will go into more detail. The basic concept and strategy involve renting out the property for 7 days or less. There's some strategies with investments and generating income with real estate that will potentially have that day be much higher. So instead of 7 days, it might be 14 days or 30 days. So if you're looking at this from a tax perspective, what John's going to cover in a little bit, you want to make sure that your strategy aligns with that 7 days or less concept. We talked about market saturation, and unfortunately, it's still a thing in a lot of markets. The things that separate properties from others is really knowing the area, going back to having the right real estate agent or professional representing you. They'll be able to tell you what areas are saturated, whether it's a saturation of maybe homes with 3 bedrooms, or it's saturation of homes with no pools or with pools, whatever that case may be. So with the rising popularity of short-term rentals over the last few years, again, it's very important to know what areas are saturated, maybe what areas do not have certain elements that guests are in fact looking for. And lastly, this at the end of the day should be approached as a business. You're not going to have success simply just throwing the property on vacation portals, Airbnb, and just hoping for the best. You may get lucky, but you need to look at this as a true business. You're going to be putting in a lot of time managing this property, maintaining this property, getting bookings, and promoting the property. So it's essential to have a clear structure, a clear strategy, goals in place to ensure success. And we're going to talk about this in a little, but asking for feedback and constantly improving the property so that it stands out with pictures and on booking platforms. So with that, I'm going to go through a few examples. Both of these examples are going to be here in Arizona. Talk about the client profile and just give you a little bit of an insight on what constitutes and really what we're looking for with a short-term rental. So this property is in Goodyear, Arizona. Clients have purchased it for $730,000. Few things. Now, this you see at the top. I mentioned this is an ideal option for a number of reasons. We talked about sleeping capacity. This is a 5-bedroom home. So 5 bedrooms. If we're looking at 2 people in each room, already out of the gate, we're at 10 people that this house can sleep. There's also a separate guest house. So we're going to put 2 more in there. We're now at 12. And this has a finished basement. These clients aren't utilizing that basement for any extra sleeping capacity. What I've seen clients do in the past, they're putting bunk beds down there for kids. They're doing a pull-out couch. They're maybe walling off a portion of the basement to create a separate room to add, again, more sleeping occupancy. This one, with its size, with the square footage, the guest house and basement, you could get up to about 16 to 18 people. So because of the size, it's the ideal option. You're going to capture a lot of different people. You may get smaller groups, bigger groups that are coming in, but you have the potential for higher revenue because of the sleeping capacity. This also has a heated pool and spa. And that's one thing that I really want to go through in detail, not necessarily just here in Arizona, but other markets that have pools. For example, here in Arizona, you're really only using the pool if it's not heated in the summer. It drops and gets a little bit cool in the winter and then the fall and some parts of the spring. So let's say you don't have a pool that's heated. You're not going to necessarily get people that are booking that home because of having a pool. So why this one is the ideal option, you now have a heated pool and you have a spa combo. So year round, people are coming to this property. If it's cold outside, they can turn on the heater and they can enjoy the pool. If it's warm outside and it's the summer, they can actually chill the pool because they have a chiller. So ideal option, you have the spa combo, you have the pool, you have the size. Now, from a client profile standpoint, this is a nurse and a CEO. They're in their early 40s and obviously high earners on the income scale. So they were looking at this not only from a revenue standpoint, but also for the tax benefit, which John will go through in more detail. So all these variables, we're looking at the square footage, the location, the bedroom count, the heated pool, and spa, their projected revenue. Now, of course, we're looking at revenue before any expenses, $120,000 to $140,000 per year. Now, you're not going to find these everywhere. They are out there. You have to be very diligent. And like I said, hire the right real estate agent and professional to help you spot and identify these opportunities. So here's another option. This client actually converted their primary home to a short-term rental. So this was a property in Chandler, Arizona. It's right down the street from Intel, one of our largest employers in Arizona. It's also down the street from the Price Tech Corridor. So a lot of tech companies, financial companies that are really a block away. This home, $425,000, it's a much lower price point, smaller, just under 1,300 square feet, 3 bedrooms. Now, this does not have a pool. It actually didn't have a spa either. But what they did, they added an above ground spa. Things that I often talk about with clients is a water element. If you have any type of water element, that's going to drive more revenue for your property. So a water element could be access to water, such as maybe a beach or a lake. It could also be access to water in the form of their on-site on the property, whether it's a pool or a hot tub. The best use of your money is always going to be an above ground spa or hot tub because they are portable, they're fairly inexpensive, and any type of water element, such as a hot tub, will increase your revenue by at least $10,000, especially the case in areas like Florida or Arizona, when a hot tub is something that people want to use in the evening, maybe the mornings when we're in the peak season of November to April or May. You also have hot tubs that have chillers now. So if you wanted to utilize that hot tub in the summer, you can flip the switch and have that water be chilled. So that's a very cost-effective way to have a water element, drive more interest to people who are looking for that, increase the revenue without breaking the bank and having high expenses. This client profile, project manager and business owner, they are in their early 30s, mid-level earners. You can see the revenue is much, much lower, but the benefit with them, they purchased the property quite some time ago. So they have a low basis, they have a low interest rate, a low payment. So now they can leverage that, turn this property into an income generating asset and take advantage of the tax benefit. With that, we're going to just talk about strategies for success. These are things that not many individuals are doing. They're not implementing. Again, they're not treating it like a true business. The number one thing, social media. Really can't escape social media this day and age. Social media is going to cover a few different things. One, a lot of successful individuals that have short-term rentals, they have specific pages for their property. They are marketing their property on social media, maybe posting once or twice a week, pictures of the property, maybe new things with the property, maybe even the location of which the home is in, events that are happening, all to just generate interest for the property. The other thing that I'm going to tie into social media is an email campaign. Again, you are treating this like a business and you're looking at prospecting, you're looking at generating as much traffic to the property as possible. You consider adding email marketing with the property. Everyone who has either stayed at the home, everyone who's interested, whether it's coworkers, friends, families, your network, your sphere, adding them to an email marketing platform could really drive more traffic and increase your revenue. Some examples, doing it on a monthly basis and talking about the events that are happening within that area that month. Maybe you added some things to the property. I always tell this example. A few years ago, before football season, one of our clients got a huge TV. It was probably the largest TV at the time. He sent out an email letting everyone that was on that campaign know, got a brand new TV before football season. Anyone who books in the fall or football season gets a 10% discount. So he got about 6 to 7 new bookings from that he probably would not have got from Airbnb because they booked directly from that email campaign. So you could easily implement that. It's super easy. It doesn't take that much time and you can get really creative. Anyone that you know, like I said, friends, family, coworkers, let them know, I have a short-term rental. This is the area that it's in. Are you maybe interested? Do you know anyone that's interested? Anything you can do to get more traffic to your property is a win. Friends and family, like I said, mentioning to friends and family that you have a short-term rental, maybe offering a discount, maybe offering something to them so that they can stay, or even better, they can provide you feedback on how to improve the property. That's something too, when I'm going to talk about creating an experience that oftentimes owners miss, is they think they're creating the property one way because that's how maybe they want it, but they're not thinking about what others may want. So getting advice from friends and family, what they thought, what you should add, can definitely help with the property and with exposure. Traveling nurses. Now, this one's going to kind of fall in a little bit of a tricky spot just because of the timeline. Again, we're looking at 7 days or less. A lot of traveling nurses have much longer contracts where they're here for maybe weeks on end. So this sub could come up, or maybe it's a short stint, but that's an opportunity as well to potentially explore. Local employers. Now with remote work, there's a lot of people that work from home, and they maybe have to visit their headquarters maybe on a monthly basis, maybe on a quarterly basis here and there. So having your home available to local employers for short stays, maybe there's a conference. I know when I used to travel working for a corporation, I didn't want to stay in a hotel for a week. If you're offering your property to local employers, letting them know, then that could be not only a cost savings for them to put multiple employees in that home, but also it's going to generate extra revenue for you and more bookings. So this is an example on how you can leverage LinkedIn, reaching out to employers in the area, finding employees as well through LinkedIn, building up that network, and going back to social media, sharing your property, sharing your website, sharing your pages with individuals, and trying to increase the exposure. So some of these are going to be related to specifically Arizona, parts of Florida as well, but spring training. So, and I can kind of bundle that into really any local sporting event. If you're in a market where there's, say, spring training, there's big sporting events. Of course, we're going to have the Olympics in LA in 4 years. Most big cities have a rotation for Super Bowl and big sporting events. This is an easy way to be able to offer your property to individuals that are coming in. For example, spring training, you can get very proactive going on LinkedIn, going on Major League Baseball websites, finding scouts, finding minor league baseball players. This strategy has worked time and time again for clients that they've been proactive. They've gone on LinkedIn, found a scout and said, here's my property. In case you're coming this year, you don't have a place, I wanted you to at least be aware of it. You are surprised, and I've been surprised too, how many people actually are interested, don't have accommodations yet, and people are able to drive a lot of traffic that way. So spring training, local sporting events, depending on the area that you're in. If you're in an area where you're in close proximity to a sporting event, you kind of have that baked in premium. You know that maybe one weekend out of the year, or maybe a quarter, 3 months out of the year, you're going to generate much more revenue because of the proximity. So something to consider as well. Snowbirds. So in markets like Arizona and Florida, parts of California, other markets where individuals come for colder climates, this is another way to really be successful with short-term rentals, is be in an area that attracts those individuals, that has amenities, that has access to shopping. Maybe it's a golf course community that everyone's riding around in golf carts. That's what you're wanting to do. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, creating that experience for those individuals. Offering to builders. This is one that I would say I don't see anyone doing this. Our clients are doing it, where you have, say, someone that's moving here. They're working with a new construction company. They're building a home, but their home is not going to be done, maybe let's say till September or October, but they need to be here much sooner. Maybe it's a week, 2-week delay. They could easily find your property that's a short-term rental, that's furnished. They can keep all their stuff in storage. They move into your home for a short stay. They're paying you a premium. Of course, the builder's happy because that client's moving forward with the contract, and the buyer's happy because not only did they find a short-term rental to get them to the destination that they're looking to go, but they're able to also build or buy that dream home of theirs. So what we do with all the builders, really locally here in Arizona, we're starting to build it out across the country, is we're sending all of our client properties to builders in the area so that they can offer those properties to individuals where the timeline does not line up 100%. Travel portal partners. This is a new one where, as you know, you accumulate Chase points, miles, American Express. Before, you would go on and just book hotels. Well, now you have the ability to book short-term rentals. So this is a strategy where you have specific partners within those portals where you can book or have your property available to be booked by individuals redeeming miles. This is a new concept, so I do have partners in place that can help with this. So if you're interested in that, like I said, it is new. We have a few clients that have implemented it and they're seeing a lot of success. Relocations, kind of going with hand in hand, offering to builders, those who are coming to a certain area, they need to be there, whether it's for school, they need to work, or maybe family is not moving yet, and you need to be here for work or starting an assignment. That is an easy way to have short-term housing through relocations. Again, you can have a lot of different partners, whether you're looking on LinkedIn, you're connecting with employers specifically, adding all these people, all these things that I've talked about. Again, going back to email marketing, adding everyone to that email marketing campaign to be able to educate on your property, what's going on, how you can help, how you can be a service, new things. Going back to really, and talking about it right now, creating an experience. That is the number one thing that most people miss with regards to short-term rentals. Like I said, they think they're going to go into the property, they're going to design it how they want, but they miss that element, what everyone else is looking for. So a few examples, they're a little unique, but it's created an experience of what people don't have maybe in their home. So we have a few clients, they've created and built a pickleball court in the backyard. A lot of people do putting greens. They'll do, of course, like I said, water elements. I often talk about gaming elements as well. Cornhole boards, bocce ball, basketball hoop, anything that is creating a unique experience for what you want in a vacation rental, what you want in just a vacation. That is something that is very, very important. If you're looking at the inside of the home, like I said, with a big TV or a comfortable living area, I know when I go and I look for a short-term rental, I like watching movies. I like watching sports. I like feeling comfortable. I want a big TV. I want a comfortable couch. I want to feel, that cozy and comfortable feeling. So talking to friends and family, talking to others, what is it that you want? Polling those individuals that have stayed at the property and asking them not only for a review, but what you can do more to enhance that experience. Lastly, we talked about it a little bit, primary conversion. This is a strategy. You have a low basis. You've owned the home for quite some time, and it's in an area that allows short-term rentals. Instead of sitting on that property, not having that property work for you outside of appreciation, turn it into an income generating asset where you can earn revenue from it, especially if you're in an area in a city where it's a buyer's market. For example, here in Phoenix, Arizona, a lot of our cities are trending towards in favor of buyers. You can easily turn that property into an income generating asset, into a short-term rental, take advantage of the revenue, take advantage of the tax benefits, and now you have leverage as a buyer to get a home at a much lower price. Or if you're in an area where there's a lot of new construction, take advantage of the incentives that the builders are offering. So if you're interested in a specific area, please let me know. I can connect you with a real estate expert specifically with short-term rentals. Or if you have questions on anything we discussed, you can scan my QR code here. Has a ton of links to information, a link to schedule a call with me, as well as some free resources and guides for you as well. So now I will pass it back to John, and he will discuss and highlight how you can achieve significant tax savings along with great revenue potential. Back to you, John.
So in order to grasp and appreciate the tax benefits of a short-term rental, you got to understand the basics of depreciation. So we're going to start right there. For some of you who are real estate vets, this is probably going to be a refresher. So let's say you purchased a property for $1 million and you immediately turn that property into just a run-of-the-mill long-term rental. Well, the IRS knows that there's going to be wear and tear on the property over time. The dishwasher might give out over time. The walls might need to be repainted. The roof might need to be repaired, right? There's tons of things that are going to slowly depreciate over time. And so the IRS, bless their hearts, wants to give you a tax benefit for this. And this tax benefit is called depreciation. So how depreciation works is you take your cost basis, in this case, it's $1 million, and you strip out the percentage of the property that is considered non-depreciable land, because the land on which your property sits on is not considered depreciable in the eyes of the IRS. So let's go ahead and take a look at a quick example here. So this is that actual example. You have the $1 million acquisition price or cost basis, and you have that non-depreciable component, right? So let's just say that non-depreciable component is 25% of the property. The remaining 75% of the property you can depreciate, or it's considered depreciable. So the IRS lets you take that number, in this case it's 750,000, and divide it by 27 and a half years. This is how long they have classified that a long-term rental will depreciate over time. So you're going to go ahead and take 750,000 divided by 27 and a half, and that gives you $27,000 a year in depreciation. That $27,000 in depreciation is considered a loss, and you can use it to write it off against the rental property, in addition to costs like mortgage interest, insurance, and cleaning costs. But here's the deal. $27,000 a year in losses probably isn't going to move the needle a whole lot for the people watching this, especially if you're a high income individual. Well, the IRS under current law throws you a bone. They say, all right, we get that certain elements of your property might depreciate a whole lot faster than other parts. So for example, the light fixtures in your home are probably going to depreciate a lot faster than, let's say, the roof. So the IRS allows you to reclassify the depreciable life of all the different components of the property. So in this case, what you are looking at is this happening. So as you can see here, this is an actual example of this. Notice how it says 39-year property instead of 27 and a half year property. This is because we're now looking at a short-term rental. Short-term rentals default to a classification of 39-year property instead of 27 and a half year property. So after everything is reclassified, we end up with 27% of the property having a depreciable life of 20 years or less, which is going to give us some serious tax benefits. And you're going to see all this in a moment. But before we talk about the benefits, it's important to know how this reclassification happens, because you walking around with a clipboard and reclassifying the different components of the property as 39-year property, 5-year property, 15-year property, whatever it is not going to fly in the eyes of the IRS. This is where a cost segregation study comes into play. A cost seg study is the process of hiring usually a team of engineers and CPAs to do all this reclassification for you. It is usually going to cost anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000, sometimes higher, sometimes cheaper. But doing this is considered legitimate. And if you get audited by the IRS, you can show them how you actually calculated these numbers. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the tax benefits would work. So as a refresher, we bought the property for $1 million. That is our cost basis. After doing this cost segregation study, $250,000 of that is considered non-depreciable land. $500,000 is considered 39-year property, since we purchased this as a short-term rental, and $250,000 of it has a depreciable life of 20 years or less. Now, part of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act in 2017 increased the power of bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation is a special tax benefit you can potentially take advantage of in year one in owning a rental property. It originally allowed you to take advantage of 100% of whatever the 20-year or less amount was in year one. However, for properties placed in service in 2024, it goes down to 60%. So in this case, since we're doing this in 2024 and we're placing the property in service in 2024, our year one bonus depreciation is $150,000. Plus, we can take our normal depreciation on the 39-year component. So if we add these numbers together, our total year one depreciation is $162,820. That is a massive loss that could provide us some serious tax benefits. Now, if you are a real estate vet, you're probably thinking, well, all those tax losses are nice, but I can't use them to actually reduce my income. If you're thinking this, you're 100% correct. By default, real estate is considered a passive investment in the eyes of the IRS. And therefore, the losses you generate from something like bonus depreciation, you usually can't offset it against your income from your business or job. The only way those losses could be used to offset your income are, number one, if you're a real estate professional, which is going to entail you putting in about 15 hours weekly into materially participating in managing real estate. And it has to be your main profession. You can't have a job you work at 40 hours a week and claim real estate professional status. Now, for most people, this is obviously going to take a ton of work and it's going to be off the table unless you're, let's say, a full-time real estate agent. But I mentioned there's two ways we could get this done. The other way is through what is nicknamed the STR loophole or short-term rental loophole. Under Section 469 of the tax code, the IRS classifies certain rental income and losses as non-passive. And one of these exceptions are short-term rentals. So if your short-term rental has an average stay of 7 days or less, and you materially participate in the management of the property, you can use all those losses we were just talking about. That was over $160,000 of losses to reduce your ordinary income. So income from your W-2 job, you could actually reduce. Now, if you're wondering what material participation actually means, there's a 7-part test to determine if you have sufficient involvement in the management of the property. Again, it's a 7-part test, but you only need to pass one part of that test to meet material participation. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight on our screen here the most commonly passed ones. So number one is you spend more than 500 hours working in your short-term rental business annually. The second one is you perform all the necessary tasks to manage the business yourself. And then the third test is if you're working with someone else, your participation must be over 100 hours and at least equal to the numbers of hours they contribute. So again, these are just 3 different tests in and of themselves. And again, you only have to pass one. There's 4 other tests, but they're not as common for folks to pass. So as long as you can pass one of these, you are materially participating in the management of that short-term rental, and you can use all those losses to reduce your taxable income. So let's go ahead and tie all this together with an example here. You can take a look here at the little case study. I'll go ahead and break this down. Let's go ahead and assume Homer and Marge Sample. They're 35 years old. They have $200,000 in W-2 income, and they buy a short-term rental in 2024 and place it into service. It has an average stay of 7 days or less, and they materially participate in the management of that short-term rental. They go ahead, do a cost segregation study, and find out that their year one losses or depreciation that they can take is $168,181. That results in losses that they can use to directly reduce their W-2 income. As a result, their adjusted gross income drops to $31,819. After taking the standard deduction of $29,200, their taxable income is reduced even further. The end result is they end up with a tax bill, a federal tax bill of $262. $262. This results and $27,420 in federal tax savings in year one, because their tax bill would have been close to $28,000 otherwise. Again, guys, this is, in my opinion, one of the coolest strategies that you can legally take advantage of to really reduce your income. So if you want to deploy this in your own financial plan, there's a couple things that you need to consider. Number one, at the end of the day, you are buying a rental property. And if you're going to treat it like a short-term rental, you have to view it from that business lens, and it needs to make sense in the grand scheme of your overall financial plan. Everything that Eric was discussing, you need to factor that in to the equation. The second piece is, if you plan on taking advantage of the tax benefits like a bonus depreciation, you really need to sit down and run the numbers to make sure that it's actually going to benefit you. So when we work with clients and we're trying to determine if going through the hoops of setting up a cost segregation study, taking advantage of bonus depreciation, and have all that reduce our taxable income, we need to determine if the juice is worth the squeeze, right? If there isn't going to be significant tax benefit, well, then maybe it doesn't make sense to go down the route of doing a cost seg study and taking advantage of bonus depreciation. In addition to that, you need to think about, is this truly a long-term investment? If you're just simply going to take advantage of bonus depreciation and sell in a couple of years, well, then you're potentially looking at the risk of recapture on all that bonus depreciation. So again, when we work with clients and we're trying to figure out if this is a good move, we run those scenarios. What does your tax situation look like with bonus depreciation, and what does it look like without? Oftentimes, for a lot of our high income clients, it makes a ton of sense. They end up saving a ton in taxes, but you need to do that due diligence. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in today. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of my favorite strategies to plan for with our clients, but you got to have the right team around you to get it done. You're going to need a fantastic real estate advisor and agent, just like Eric, in your corner to identify the property. I think first and foremost, that's the most important thing. You have to find the right property and make sure that this is a good investment. You're then going to need to have a great tax planner in your corner to figure out if this is going to be a suitable strategy for your tax situation. And then, of course, you're going to need to have a team to deploy to run the cost segregation study if you're planning to take advantage of bonus depreciation. So there's a ton of moving pieces here, and I would encourage you to reach out for help if you need help on all of this. I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. We'll see you next time.